Lesson 27. Frieda writes a letter from Wales. Capel Curig. N. Wales. Dear Mr. Priestley. Well, here we are in Wales, and what a lovely country it is. I was very excited when we crossed from England into Wales. The map shows a boundary between England and Wales, but there was no frontier, no customs officers, no armed guard. But you know you are in Wales all right. You soon hear Welsh being spoken, you see Welsh names on the signposts and you see them on the railway stations. One of these is Llanfair Polgwyngyl Gogerich Werndrog Will Lanticilio Gagagok. The station is in Anglesey. The name means, the Church of St. Mary in a wood of hazel trees near a rapid whirlpool and near St. Tilio's cave not far from a red cave. The town is generally known as Llanfair PG. I know Hob won't believe this, but it's true, and I will bring him a picture postcard of the station to prove it. I can't tell you about all our journey, it would take a book not just a letter, but I should like to tell you of a trip we made yesterday in Mr. Evans' car round some of North Wales. We went through lovely countryside, with great mountains, some of them beautiful and green and wooded, others bare and wild. There were gentle, fertile valleys with little farmhouses or cottages sheltering on the slopes of the mountains, and quiet lakes and rivers winding down or, in places, dashing down to the coast, which is only 20 or 30 miles away. In places the mountains run right down into the sea. We went to Snowdon, in fact we went up Snowdon, the highest mountain in England and Wales. The mountain is dark and wild looking, but my home is among the mountains of Switzerland, and though Snowdon is impressive, well, it isn't Mont Blanc or the Jungfrau. We actually went right to the top of Snowdon in a train. I daren't tell this to my Swiss mountaineering friends. It happened like this. We had just gone through the town of Llanberis at the foot of the mountain, and there was a little station and in it was a little engine and train, just like the toy trains and station that my young brother has at home. So we got in. The carriages held 15 or 16 people and, with a lot of smoke and steam, the toy train moved out and puffed its way round and up the mountain. For a time we had fine, extensive views, and then, all at once we entered a cloud. The whole view was blotted out. A thick grey mist was all around us, in the carriage, for it was quite open without any windows, and in our eyes and throats. And wasn't it cold? I sat close to Jan to try to keep warm. Suddenly, after about half an hour, we came through the cloud and into the sunlight. The train came to a stop in another little station and we were at the top of Snowdon. The clouds were breaking everywhere below us and through the gaps we had a wonderful view for miles, right across the Mina Straits to the Isle of Anglesey. Behind us we could see the enormous shadow of the two peaks of Snowdon, the one on which we, the highest one, and the slightly smaller peak beside it. Mr. Evans said something in Welsh. It was poetry and it sounded beautiful though I didn't understand a word of it. I asked him about it. He said it was from the poem The Day of Judgment by the Welsh poet Geraint Owen. He wrote the lines down for me and I'm sending them so that Lucille and Olaf and the rest will know what Welsh looks like. Lirarael Airy. Si fartal ho walahi. And it means, on that day, the head of Snowdon shall be levelled with the ground, and the circling waters shall murmur around it. But I'm no good at describing things or expressing ideas, I must leave that to Jan, he's much cleverer than I am, as you know. What I like doing is telling a story and Mr. Evans told us two that I want to tell you. He told us the first one as we came into the little town of Bedgelert that lies in a lovely valley about 10 or 12 miles from Snowdon. We got out of the car and he took us a short walk along the side of a stream until we came to what looked like a little gravestone. And this is the story he told us. In the 13th century, Llewellyn, Prince of North Wales, had a palace here. He had a faithful dog, Gellert, that went with him everywhere and that he was very fond of. But one day the prince went out hunting, and he told Gellert to stay at home and guard the prince's baby son. Gellert obediently lay down by the cradle of the baby, and Llewellyn went away. When he returned in the evening, Gellert came out joyfully to meet him, and the prince was horrified to see that the baby's cradle was overturned, the bedclothes and floor were covered with blood and there was blood round Gellert's mouth. The baby was nowhere to be seen. The prince thought the dog had killed the child, and wild with rage and fear he drew his sword and thrust it into Gellert's heart. The dying cry of the dog was followed by a child's cry. Llewellyn looked round hastily, and there, under the torn and blood-stained blankets, was his baby son, quite safe. And beside it was the body of a huge wolf that Gellert had killed in defending his master's son. Llewellyn was so filled with sorrow that it is said he never smiled again. He buried Gellert in this spot, and ever since, the place has been known as Bed Gellert, which means the grave of Gellert. My other story concerns Carnarvon, where we went on another day. It's a very interesting town, at least 2,000 years old. To the Romans it was Segontium and they built a great fort there. But what overshadows everything else in Carnarvon is the castle. When Edward I, King of England, was trying to conquer Wales, he built a great line of castles, the ruins of which you can still see at Harlech, Craigiath, Beaumaris, and Conway, but Carnarvon was the greatest. It's the most magnificent thing of its kind, said Mr. Evans, in Great Britain. If you approach it from the sea, or if you stand outside under its walls, it looks exactly as it must have done when Edward built it. Oh, keep the Welsh in subjection, but when we went inside we could see the ruin that 600 years have caused. Look at that little doorway, that was the entrance to the dining hall of the king, said Mr. Evans. It was so narrow that only one man could enter at a time, so, if the English king was surprised by an attack as he sat at dinner, his archers could kill the attackers one by one, while the king could get away down that little staircase on the other side. Carnarvon Castle. Now, come up here, he said, to the top of the Eagle Tower. So we climbed up, and he pointed out stone figures that the builders had cleverly put there. The enemy thought they were soldiers keeping constant watch, but though they shot many an arrow at those watchers they never killed one of them. Then, with a smile he said, "How time brings its changes. Edward's city of Carnarvon, where in his time a Welshman daren't set foot without risking death, is now, I should think, the most Welsh city in Wales." "Yes," said Jan, looking at the stream of visitors below us paying their shillings to the Welsh doorkeeper to enter the castle. In Edward's day the Welsh had to pay money to the English, and now the English have to pay money to the Welsh. Mr. Evans thought that was a good joke, and so do I. "Listen," he said, "I'll tell you another story." And this is the story he told. Edward I had conquered Wales. The two great Welsh leaders, Llewellyn and his brother David, had been killed. But the Welsh people, though they were beaten, were rebellious. They had no great leader, but there were a number of chieftains, most of whom were jealous of one another, and at last 3 or 4 of these chieftains came to see Edward, who, with his wife Eleanor, was staying at Carnarvon Castle, to tell him their complaints and to try to get their wrongs put right. They wanted, they said, to be ruled not by an English king, but by a Prince of Wales, born in Wales, of royal blood, and not speaking English or French. They wanted a prince whose life was good, and who had not wronged any man, though, owing, as I said, to their jealousy of one another, they couldn't agree who this prince should be. Well, they were certainly asking a lot, but Edward, after a little thought, told them to ask all the chiefs and their followers to come to Carnarvon Castle in a week's time and he would give them what they had asked, a Prince of Wales who fulfilled all their conditions. So the next week the great square outside the castle was crowded with excited people, all wondering which of their chieftains Edward had chosen. I'll not finish the story here. Jan thought it would make a good little play, so he has written this next piece, which he has called The First Prince of Wales. Scene, Carnarvon Castle, a crowd of Welshmen, kept back by English soldiers. A group of Welsh chieftains push their way through the crowd and come to the front. First Welshman, "It won't be long now, look, the chiefs are all here." Second Welshman, To English soldier, and you won't be here long now. English soldier, what do you mean? Second Welshman, when we get our Welsh prince, you English soldiers will all be sent back to England. English soldier, there's nothing I'd like better. I'm tired of the sight of your Welsh mountains and your rain and fog. First Welshman, they are lovely mountains, and it is a lovely country. Second Welshman, it will be when you English are out of it. Second English soldier, all right, but give me good old London every time. Stand back there. Stand back. What are you pushing for? You'll see the show all right from there. First Chieftain, I wonder who the new ruler is to be? Of course, you know my mother was a distant relation of Llewellyn. Second Chieftain, yes, very distant, about as distant as mine to King Arthur. But it's a pity you took all that trouble to learn English. Edward said he would choose a prince who spoke no English. Welsh was always good enough for me. Third Chieftain, if you think I'd ever agree to having either of you for my prince, you are very much mistaken, and I have 2,000 men. Once the English go, there is no one in Wales who would be stronger than I. And of course I don't speak any English, well, not very much. Fourth Chieftain, but Edward said the prince would have wronged no man. I haven't forgotten those 50 sheep of mine that you stole. I'll not have a thief for prince over me. Third Chieftain, do you call me a thief? Second Chieftain, my father's second cousin was descended from Arthur. Third Chieftain, 2,000 men, I tell you. English soldier, stop that noise. Stand back. Stand back. The King. Edward steps from a window onto the balcony in front of the castle. Behind him is a knight carefully carrying Edward's shield flat in his hands. On the shield is a bundle covered with a blanket. The whole crowd is excited but silent, and waiting for Edward to speak. Edward, chieftains and people of Wales, you have asked for a prince and I have promised you one to rule over you, of royal birth. Welshman, yes, yes. Edward, born in Wales. Welshman, yes. Edward, and not able to speak a word of English. Welshman, yes, yes. He turns to the knight behind, lifts the blanket, and shows a small baby. Edward, and one, moreover, of blameless life, one who has wronged no man by word or deed in all his life. If I give you such a prince to rule over you, will you promise to be ruled by him? Welshman, we promise. Edward, then here is your prince. He turns to the knight behind, lifts the blanket, and shows a small baby. My son, a prince of royal blood, born a week ago in Wales, in Carnarvon Castle, he speaks no word of English, and he has wronged no man alive. Edward, Prince of Wales. Well, said Mr. Evans, the chiefs were angry and disappointed, but the Welsh people were pleased, and each chief consoled himself with the thought that, at any rate, no rival chief had been chosen. And from that day to this, the eldest son of the King and Queen of England has always been the Prince of Wales. It's time I brought this long letter to a close. Jan and I send our kind regards and best wishes to you and Mrs. Priestley and all my friends who are with you. Yours sincerely, Frieda. Exercises. Exercise 1. Use the following words and phrases in sentences. Boundary, bare, in places. Frontier, shelter, actually. Customs, fertile, puff. Signposts, slopes, round and round. Trip, impressive, extensive. Blot out, hastily, I'm tired of. Enormous, quite safe, bundle. Peak, ruins, blameless. Obediently, archers, consul. Overturn, fulfill, from that day to this. Exercise 2. Answer these questions. 1. How did Frieda know she was in Wales? 2. What sort of countryside did she see in North Wales? 3. Why was Frieda less impressed by Snowdon than, perhaps, a young English girl would have been? 4. What sort of train took Frieda up the mountain? 5. What could they see at the top? 6. Who was Garon y Owen? 7. Why did Llewellyn kill Gellert? 8. What is the modern name for Seagontium? 9. Why was the doorway to the dining hall of Carnarvon Castle so narrow? 10. Why did the builders put stone figures at the top of the tower? 11. Which city did Mr. Evans think was the most Welsh? 12. What conditions did the Welsh chieftains want fulfilled by Edward I when he chose a ruler? 13. How did the chiefs like his choice? 14. How did the Welsh people like his choice? 15. What is the title given to the eldest son of the King and Queen of England? Exercise 3. Rewrite the following sentences using although, instead of, but, e.g., the English tried to conquer the Welsh but they remained free. Although the English tried to conquer them, the Welsh remained free. 1. The Welsh fought bravely, but they were defeated. 2. Jan had never been to Wales before, but he soon felt at home there. 3. Wales was a beautiful country, but the English soldier preferred London. 4. The Welsh chiefs were disappointed, but they accepted their new prince. 5. Hob likes to read, but he does not like to write. Exercise 4. Make the following sentences passive. Leave out, where it is unnecessary, the doer of the action. See Book 2, Lesson 27. 1. Mr. Evans took Frieda and Jan to Snowdon. 2. The valleys shelter the little farmhouses. 3. We could see the enormous shadow of Snowdon. 4. Gellert was guarding the prince's son. 5. Blood covered the floor. 6. The prince buried Gellert at this spot. 7. Edward I built a great line of castles. 8. Mr. Evans is pointing out the stone figures. 9. The English are paying money to the Welsh. 10. Edward I had conquered Wales. 11. He told them to come in a week's time. 12. Olaf has written this little play. 13. The soldiers kept back the Welsh crowd. 14. Edward chose a baby to be their ruler. 15. I must now bring this letter to a close. Exercise 5. Express in one word the meaning of each of the following words and phrases. All the words come from this lesson. You are given the number of letters. 1. A short journey. 2. To show that a thing is true. 3. The edge of a country next the sea. 4. Mountain top. 5. Small river. 6. To look after. 7. Very large. 8. A baby's bed. 9. To go towards. 10. To go into. 11. Shot by archers. 12. Wanting something which another possesses, fearing that another will take what one has, and therefore hating him. 13. Someone who steals. 14. Not speaking or making a noise. 15. Sad at not seeing one's hopes come true. 16. Stretching for a long way, wide. 17. Producing much, fruitful. 18. Having no clothes or covering. 19. Quickly, in a hurry. 20. To protect. Composition exercises. 1. Tell or write the story of Llewellyn and Gellert. 2. Describe the way Frieda climbed Snowdon. 3. Have you ever climbed a mountain? If so, tell the story. Or A mountain summit white with snow is an attractive sight, I know. But why not see it from below? Do you agree with the author of these lines? What are your views on mountain climbing? Dear friends, thank you for watching our channel and learning English with us. Subscribe. And we wish you great luck in achieving your goals.